Hi there. Today we are talking about the 5 top tips for slip and fall incidents. Slip and trip and fall incidents are common, and if you're injured, you may have recourse. Knowing these 5 key points can help you to navigate your options. I'm Natalie Gary, the principal lawyer with Gary Law. I help injured people get the compensation that they deserve for their injuries. Let's get into this important topic today. Let's start at point 1. First of all, you really need to document the incident location. If you fall on city property, you need to make sure that you report it within a specific time frame so that you protect your right to sue. So this is a very quick turnaround, but you also need to make sure that you take photos of the area and gather any witness information and document any hazards that contributed to the fall. This might be really difficult if you are injured, but I did have a client who was badly injured in a slip and fall, and what she did was she told her husband, go and take photos right away of the hazard that she had tripped over. It was sort of a pylon that was not properly placed and constituted a hazard. So this case was one that did end up coming down to, was it negligent the way the city had treated this area? And the photos that her husband took became very important. So if you're too injured, do make sure that you send someone after the injury happens to get those photos for you. The second point here is proving negligence. In order to make a successful claim, you have to prove that the property owner failed to meet the reasonableness standard of care. This involves showing that they didn't take adequate measures to ensure safety through inspection, maintenance, or warnings. So if you speak with a lawyer, then they can really help to give you clarity about how this standard applies to your specific situation and what type of evidence you need to gather in order to prove negligence. So a lot of these cases do come down to the records that the defendants have, and it is helpful and sometimes necessary that you have a lawyer in order to get that disclosure, because it will involve filing a claim usually and then going to discoveries, which is where the evidence is provided. So this comes down to usually looking at the records that the defendant has. Like in one file that I had, we were asking for the records and it took a really long time to get them produced, to the point where we were at discoveries and we still didn't have the records. So we got an undertaking for the defendants to provide them. And of course, when we looked at the records they had, they were very sparse. So they hadn't even really noted down what was happening day to day. And they didn't really have good records of who was completing the maintenance, and they also didn't have any policy in place for completing inspections. So like every week, say that they would go and look for hazards, they did not have this in place. And that really helped in that case to prove that there was negligence, because they didn't have any system in place and the records that they had were very sparse. The third point to know about a slip and fall injury is that you are going to be claiming for pain and suffering. And this is one of the things that is pretty much across all lawsuits, that the main thing that you will be claiming for, or at least one of the things that comes up in every lawsuit, is the pain and suffering. So if you've suffered injuries, then you are claiming for general damages, which goes to compensate for pain and suffering and loss of enjoyment of life. So this is to compensate you for how the injuries have affected various aspects of your daily living. And this is really specific to each case. So in terms of putting a monetary value on your injuries, it really depends how the accident affected your life in specific. And it really varies from client to client. For instance, I had a client who was in a trip and fall accident, and they were by trade dancer with the Raptors. So this is an incident that was a huge effect on their life because they were not able to continue with this dance career that they had been doing, and they were not able to work. And also it just greatly affected them because of the way that they were in such good shape before, and then after this slip and fall accident, they were not able to maintain that level of physical fitness, and it was a huge effect on their life. So obviously not everyone is a professional dancer, but you may have specific activities that you enjoy that have been affected by the accident. So your lawyer will work with you to make sure that those arguments are all advanced and that those details are brought forward, because it really accentuates how bad the accident was for you in particular and how the injuries are affecting your life. The fourth thing to know in a slip and fall accident is medical expenses and documentation. So what do I mean by that? Claim medical expenses that are not covered by OHIP. So in Ontario, OHIP does cover most medical expenses, but you can claim for medical expenses that aren't covered by OHIP. For example, ambulance fees, physiotherapy, and medical equipment. So keep all receipts and ensure that a physician recommends the treatments or the devices that you're spending money on, because it lends a lot more credibility when a medical professional has said you should buy this instead of you just thinking, oh, I should buy this. So make sure that you do follow recommendations, but also do keep your receipts for evidence. Your lawyer will take care of notifying OHIP of your intention to start a claim, because there is an obligation in Ontario to subrogate their account. So that means that your lawyer will be seeking reimbursement to the government for the treatment costs related to your injuries. The fifth thing to know is about income loss compensation. So as with the example that I gave with the client who was a professional dancer, income loss is something that you can claim compensation for. If your injuries cause you to miss work, or if your injuries affect your ability to work as you did before the accident, you can claim for economic losses. So this includes short-term or long-term absence from work or your reduced capacity to work. So you need to consider the future impact on your career and the potential loss of earning capacity when discussing settlement. And your lawyer will assist you with this and will look at getting any expert reports that they might need to support the loss of income. So an expert would be like an accountant or someone who can look at the numbers and project what your loss would be based on you not being able to work as you did before the accident. So by understanding these 5 critical aspects of a slip and fall injury, you can better navigate the complexities of this type of accident and make sure that your rights are protected after an injury. It's also especially important to get legal advice so that you're covering all of the potential claim areas that you could make in a slip and fall accident. I can be contacted at the information on the screen, and I would be happy to chat with you about your case and give you some advice.